Oh, we're live already. Okay, never mind.
Clearing my throat.
Okay. Ready?
Well, hello.
Hi,
and
everyone. It's Ellie.
And Tara here at the 180 Podcast.
Welcome back. So before we get started, if you are interested in just joining us for the first time, you can check us out at our website at 180shift.org or all of our social medias, which is where you can find a lot of our stuff. At Instagram at 180.shift. Twitter or X, and TikTok at 180shift, and Facebook at Tara, letter N, L, and then Ellie. That one's a mouthful right there. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Tara, how's your week been?
My week's been good. Yesterday I did we had a memorial service for my grandmother. So
right.
Yeah.
I remember talking about that last week too.
Yeah, but it was really beautiful. I felt like it was really honoring for her. So I'm grateful we got through it and that it went well and everything. And yeah, I'm really happy about that.
That's good.
I feel like she's with the Lord now, so it's
that's
helped
nice.
transition her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or finally, second podcast episode of the year.
Yes.
That's great. And we do have a wonderful guest joining us today. And I would love for you to introduce yourself. You have such a great title behind you and like everything that you've been doing. So,
Well, I am Kimberly Fletcher. I am the founder and president of Moms for America. We are a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Now, you guys are grown so much. Well, let's kind of go back to the beginning and start off from how you kind of got inspired to start Moms for America.
Well, it actually started on 9/11. My husband was stationed at the Pentagon on 9/11, and through a series of God-given miracles, he came home safe that day. And it changed me. That was the day that I went from being patriotic to being a patriot. And I realized the cost of freedom. I was willing to pay the price, and I've been on the front lines of freedom ever since, making sure that my children, my grandchildren understand what America's about and why freedom is worth fighting for. And it was really the 3 years in between 2001 and 2004 that led me to starting the organization. After 9/11, I just started looking into everything about America, our history, our heritage. I attended Constitution classes. And I was like, why didn't I learn this stuff in school? Why don't I know these things? And I just became more and more excited. And it was like I just couldn't get enough. I was so hungry for anything I could get my hands on the patriots, our heroes, the history of our country. It's a great story. And then in 2004, during the election, I just had this overwhelming feeling that I needed to start a national organization, and I was just laughing my head off. I was, what do I know about? What do I know about that? I'm just a mom. And so I remember over and over and over again asking, why me?
Right.
And finally I realized this was the Lord calling me, and he was like, okay, you're either going to do it or you're not. And I was like, well, there's so many people who know how so much more and can do a better job. And he answered me, and he said, yes, but they'll do it their way. And I want it done my way. And he knew I'd have to do it his way on my knees all the time because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But God qualifies who he calls. Everybody out there has a specific calling that you don't even maybe realize that God has called you to do. But I think 2020 helped a lot of people realize what their calling was, and they started jumping on the lines and going, okay, it's time we do something.
Right.
So you talk about like your way of doing this. So what is your way?
Well, my way is always I work with my brain, and I think that things should be, done a certain organized way, and the Lord's like, just trust my heart, trust your heart, it's okay, I've got you, and I've been able to blend both together, so it's quite a bit an act of faith. And a lot of tenacity. He knew he'd call me because I don't give up. Yeah. And until he says, well done, my good and faithful servant, you can go off to, the cabin in the woods and live happily ever after. I am here on the front lines. I'm not giving up. I'm not going away. And he knew that. So no matter how hard things were going to get, I guess I could describe myself as a bull shark. and don't mess with my grandkids or my kids.
Yeah. Now that's a lovely story. I think like that shows a lot of like God's just faithfulness in leading you through, and the fact that you've grown so much and it's proven. And that's just amazing story by itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just taking something as awful as 9/11 and turning it into something good, something that's powerful, like an initiative to make things better and to, avoid those kind of things. So, so what was it about 9/11 that led you in this field directly? Like, what specifically was it?
Really, it was the next day. I have to say. So unless you lived in Washington, D.C., or I guess in New York, you wouldn't really know what really was going on. In Washington, D.C., I think it was different than New York, because it's the hub of not just government. It was, where all these military people who serve and sacrifice their lives come together. I mean, the Pentagon is like a city of 20, 30,000 people. And so there's so many awesome things that happened, and it just kind of woke me up. There was a mom who was standing in a gas station parking lot just overlooking the Pentagon, and the media was watching her all day long, and finally this one reporter, he was talking live, he's on live, and he's like, there's this woman who's been here, all day long, and so we just thought we'd go over and ask her, why is she here? So he goes over on live TV, and he says, so I've noticed that you're here all day long. I'm just wondering, are you here you're watching what's happening and, what's going on down there? And she looked at him and tears welled up in her eyes. And she said, no, I'm waiting to see if they pull my husband out.
Oh,
And it's one of those things, that it just grips you, and you realize the situation that we're in. And I didn't want to be in a situation again where we were under attack. But it was really what happened the next day, when everybody came together. I mean, prior to that, there was this constant political bickering and, this side, that side. And it was just like, oh my gosh, could we just get together as a people? And for a whole entire year, beginning that very first day on 9/12, the whole country came together. And we were singing they were singing on the Capitol steps, God bless America, Democrat, Republican, everybody was doing this. And it was like, I mean, let's do that. And that was the thing that really just, I wanted to feel that all the time, bringing us together on the things that we believe in and we stand for. Our principles, our values that made America the free country it is.
Yeah.
That is
so true.
You know what? I never was able to experience that, but that's something that I would love to experience, because oftentimes we always see people just fighting over like being right or just all these political issues. Some of them are worthy causes. A lot of them are. And then we have some other ones that they just bicker and fight over that are just quite useless for
we
the most
agree
part.
a whole lot more than we don't. And
right.
I will tell you, so, if you are a student of history, then you know where we're at. And this is what I talked about the other day in a speech I was giving, and it's kind of become my speech, because Joe Biden's not leading the country. Everybody knows that. There's a cabal behind him who's thrusting him out as the Manchurian president to be the spokesperson for everything evil coming our way. Something wicked this way come. And so he's out there and he's giving this speech, and it was like the whole cabal just laying down the gauntlet and saying, okay, we're not giving up. We're up any ground. We're going to lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it takes, and we're going to not give up any ground. And he called out book burners, book banners. That's moms. Say the word. They can't. They call us chest feeders, and birthing people, because they can't even say the word, because they know how powerful our influence is. And so he lays down this gauntlet, and I'm like, okay, I'm picking it up. Just like, no. So I've been going around and telling everybody, we need watch the speech. It's 33 minutes. Watch it, because then you know what we're up against. He spewed the word mega like it was a 4-letter word, and everybody who just didn't toe the line, who doesn't agree with you, if you are a book banner or someone who doesn't support anybody's ideology or whatever, then you're just in the mega group and you're destroying the country. And he said democracy like over 24 times. I'm like, dude, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. But if you know why they're doing that, they're saying democracy and sacred democracy, our sacred American democracy, our sacred over and over and over again, because they want to destroy the vote. They want to make it the popular vote, get rid of the Electoral College. And so California, God help us. There are great people in California. California and New York will be deciding every election going forward, and no one else in any of the country will have a say. We are a union of states. We each have a voice. We each should have a voice. And the Electoral College ensures that we have that voice. So he's made it clear, taking your vote away, we're taking over the country.
Yes.
That's it. It's over. Just get in line, step behind. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening on my watch. And so that's kind of my speech, where we're at right now, literally, is Mao's China, Hitler's Germany, and Stalin's Russia. And most people have no idea how dangerous, how pivotal this time in history is.
Right. Now, I know you're touching on it right now, but just express how important it is to know your history. I mean, you also mentioned how you had such a hunger to know about America's history when 9/11 happened, and how patriotic is, why is being patriotic important?
It is, if you don't understand what America's about and you don't have allegiance to it, people need to understand patriotism isn't about this is about country, geography. Have you ever heard anybody say, "Oh, Irishism," or Englishism, Africanism? No, Americanism. America is exceptional, and the whole entire world looks at us as that light on the hill, that hope for the world, because freedom can foster anywhere with the right ingredients. Faith, virtue, patriotism. You have those things, and freedom will prosper. But patriotism is allegiance to an idea. And this it's America is not just a geography. It's not lands and rocks and mountains. It is an idea, the idea of freedom and justice and equality, and patriotism is loyalty to that idea. And so that's the thing that connects us all and should connect us all. But if you don't know your history and you don't understand what America's about, and then you don't have patriotism, then you will start repelling and going in another direction. Socialism, communism. Well, there are people who have come from communist countries all over the world who are shuddering right now.
I was going to say capitalism or socialism.
Which one do
Which
you
one?
choose?
Which one do you choose?
So, when you say the words, they've made capitalism sound so bad, but when you think of all the other things, so I'll give you a perfect story. Our vice president lives in Chicago, or 2 minutes outside of Chicago, in a suburb. 2020, when they were burning the country down. Burning down the house. They burned down Chicago, and they started on their Twitter feed. Everybody on their Twitter feed was buzzing back and forth. Okay, well, where do we go next? Let's get to the suburbs. Let's take it to the suburbs. And they were like, well, how do we know what houses to target? And they said, well, look for the flags. If they have a flag, they're probably Trumpers. So they have taken they have taken President Trump and they put him over here and made them this bad guy. And then they've taken everything that should be uniting us. The Pledge of Allegiance, our flag, the national anthem, the Constitution, those principles and values that made America the freest, most prosperous nation on earth, that course through our veins this freedom. They've taken it and shown Trumper. And so they were going to look for the flags. So her 15-year-old son came up to her and said, Mom, should we take down the flag? So you understand where we're at?
Yeah.
This isn't about President Trump. This is about President Biden or Democrat or Republican. This is literally a Marxist takeover of our country. And they're a communist takeover of our country. And there's no God in communism. There's no individuality. There's no freedom. There's no capitalism. So what is capitalism? Capitalism is the opportunity to try and fail. And most of the people that failed have been tremendously successful because they realized what not to do.
Right.
They figured that out, and then that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
Everyone doesn't win. Everyone doesn't get a trophy. And I'll tell you, that was a whole mom thing. We're bleeding hearts. We wanted everybody to have a trophy. Nobody to feel bad. Well, here's nobody knows how to feel bad.
That's true. A lot of people nowadays, I mean, you always give out like participation trophies and making everybody feel nice, but the fact is that, we are all starting to I guess having a fake sense of accomplishment, I guess, but it kind of takes away from when you do accomplish something, that immense just I don't know, have pride of like actually completing something and
Yeah.
actually doing something
And
that
why would you want to even try?
Right.
So they take
That's
away
true,
they take
right?
away the feeling of conquering and accomplishing, and then you're like, why even bother? It's like what's happened in the education industry, where you have all of these teachers that it doesn't matter if you're a really terrible teacher or you're a really great teacher, you're all going to get treated the same. Why would you want to work harder if you're going to get paid the same? You're going to get treated the same. Why would you want to work harder? So the idea of winning is not a bad thing. It's great. You want to be that one who gets the gold medal, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to achieve those things and to aspire to those things.
Yep, totally. Now, talking about education a little bit, just what's happening in schools right now. I mean, Tara and I, we used to go out to a lot of protests. I mean, especially last year during the summer, and we experienced a lot of people talking about transgender, just kids being taught what it means to be transgender in school. And this it's not something new. It's been going on for a while. I mean, that's what we've been saying. And there's a lot of like mixed opinions of just whether or not this is okay. We're hearing people say, well, you know what, we don't want kids to be bullied in schools, right? But then there's other parents who are standing up, and mothers who are saying that this is not okay and we want our rights to teach our kids what we want to. And then we did notice some parents out there too, very few although, who said that they wanted their children to be taught what it means to be transgender and have 2 mommies and 2 daddies. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of confusion that's being brewed, and God is not a God of confusion. So I think let's just focus on truth. There's a great book, a story written by Hans Christian Andersen called The Emperor's New Clothes. You guys are familiar with the story?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the emperor's naked, ladies, and somebody needs to stand up and say it. A boy's a boy, a girl's a girl, and they're taking this this idea of gender dysphoria, instead of addressing why is it that they're questioning and uncomfortable in their bodies, they just want to mask it and say, well, let's just put you in a different body, and it's become a $1 billion business to torture kids. That's what it is, and I can tell you, I have talked to a lot of children who have in their later high school years or in their early 20s, because your frontal lobe doesn't completely develop until you're 21 to 25. So when that frontal lobe starts to develop, they're like, what the heck did I do? And if you have gone to the point where it's not able to turn back, I mean, and there's a lot of things that you can't fix back, it's just done. And I sat down with one young girl, and she was, I think, 21, 22 at this point. When she was 14, her parents, her mother specifically, encouraged her, went through the whole thing. Now, a lot of parents are being convinced that your child's going to commit suicide if you don't
right.
let them be something other than what they are. And so that scares them. But there are parents out there who think it's like Manhunting by proxy, where you're trying to live vicariously through. It's crazy. They want attention, so they do this to their children. So this mother, she thought, oh, it's the cool thing. I want to accept it. Let's just do it. And so she helped her daughter through the whole thing. Her daughter had surgery. Wow. And she removed her breasts. She will never nurse a baby. Her uterus is gone. I mean, it's just will never be a full woman, but she's never going to be a man. And she looked at me and she said, those who supposedly loved me the most, who I trusted the most, and who were supposed to protect me, didn't. How do I reconcile that now?
Wow. That is...
It's heavy.
Yeah, that is very heavy.
We're not telling the truth, and that's the thing. If parents knew the truth of what this really is, if they could see the pictures of what they're doing to children, then they would be like, oh my gosh, no. And they're starting emotionally and mentally. So they don't just jump right to pills and surgery. They start by questioning, right. And they have Planned Parenthood is they've lost a lot of their abortion industry, so they were already prepared to roll right into being gender transformation camps, and they're heralding the fact that they can transition a child in one session.
What do you think about Planned Parenthood taking over some sex education programs at schools?
they're writing the curriculum. So there's a tap out program. I don't know if you know that, but there are teachers who feel very uncomfortable. They don't want to teach this. We have teachers and school board members reaching out to us all the time saying, please keep doing what you're doing. This is out of control. We're being bullied and intimidated. The teachers are afraid to say anything, but they do have a tap out system. So if it's like, I just feel uncomfortable doing that, then like, okay, tap out. The teacher steps out, Planned Parenthood rolls in. So they have actual Planned Parenthood, actual Planned Parenthood operatives.
Do you know what they're talking about?
Coming in and sex.
No, but I mean,
I will give, they're just talking, sex, just sex. Okay, so they have, I'll just give you an example. There's a 5th grade lesson, okay? You cannot make this stuff up.
5th grade? Oh, come on, that's too young.
Yeah, so 5th grade, the Planned Parenthood curriculum talks about helping kids understand how to protect themselves by using a condom. 5th grade. Fifth grade. Okay, so they set up this game. They have 2 anatomically correct erect penises that they put on the table, and they start a relay race, and they tell the kids, line up and come up and put the condom on, take it off, and give it to the next person, and it says that make this fun. The note to the teacher is make this fun for the kids.
Where is that happening? Where is that reportedly happening?
I know it's happening all over California.
That's awful. So gross.
Well, and here's the thing people need to understand. You know, when you're living in Nebraska or Iowa or, wherever, you're thinking, well, it's crazy California. It's not California.
You're next.
It is the teacher.
You're next, Nebraska.
You're next. It's the teachers union. And here's the irony of this is that it was in 2017, I think it was, around that time period.
Yeah.
In Nebraska, okay? In Bellevue, Nebraska, in the middle, surrounded by cornfields, they passed a measure, a policy that boys and girls had to share the same bathroom and had to share the same locker rooms. And when they had trips when they went out for music or whatever, they had to share the same room. If the child was so there was a girl who said, I'm a boy now. And so they put her in a room with 3 other boys.
Oh my gosh.
And when they were on a trip. And the teacher tried to stop it, and she was told not to say anything. And she said, well, we need to let these parents know this is not a safe situation for either the girl or the boys.
Right.
And they said, well, this is about protecting the rights and privacy of that child. And she said, what about the other 3 children? It doesn't matter.
Right. Now, it raises an interesting question. Because we hear a lot about protecting or not wanting to hurt somebody else's feelings, right? And so that everybody has to conform. But then we have people having to go against their religious freedoms and having to obey these sort of laws, these unspoken laws, like you're going to get outcasted if you don't use pronouns, right, for this certain person in your friend group. But we're starting to sacrifice some people's.
I'll be an outcast then.
Yeah, but we're sacrificing some people's rights for other people's rights, and then who can we decide?
I've been thinking about that too, because it's like, whose feelings are more important? The 55-year-old trans man to woman who feels more comfortable using the women's bathroom, or the 5-year-old girl who feels uncomfortable using the bathroom with a 55-year-old biological man? Who do we choose?
Hopefully the answer is the child. That's
right.
But so, and you guys bring up really, really good points, because this isn't just about acceptance, okay? Because we all accept it just fine. We're like, fine, you do you, I'll do me. I don't care, I don't care what, if you want to be an ape, if you want to be a tree, if you want to be a butterfly, I don't care. Fly, little butterfly. But they don't want us to accept them and just go be you. They want us to embrace their lifestyle and advocate for it. And they want to shove it on our kids. So my thing is, you do you, I do me, leave my kids alone.
Yeah.
Just keep the kids out of this. And when they become adults, if they want to be a butterfly, let them be a butterfly. I don't care. So, and then they've got the furries. Did you know the furries is a real thing?
Yes.
But I thought it was a Babylon Bee skit. I'm not kidding.
No.
And then I started reading all these stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. What dimension are we living in? Can I remind everybody the Emperor's naked?
Now,
I mean, I wanted to talk more about the socialist thing. So, like, okay, is it bad for America if minimum wage gets raised to $20 an hour? Because we've seen that in California.
What difference is if it's $20 an hour or $200 an hour?
I don't know.
So most America's a principle-based organization. So we always go back to the principle. It's not about the amount. It's about the principle behind it. It doesn't matter if it's $20 an hour or $200 an hour. The whole entire economic system is going to wrap around whatever that number is. So if it's $20 an hour, you're now paying $10 for a kid's meal. If it's $200 an hour, you're now paying $50, $60 for a kid's meal. You know, it doesn't matter. Everything is going to rise, whatever the cost is. And I'll tell you that the people, like McDonald's, Burger King, all those places like that, those are step up places. Those are places that I worked at when I was in high school. Yeah. It's not where you stay. Yeah. And if it's a place where you need to go, for a little period of time to get on your feet, or you're getting close to retirement age, and you're like, hey, I want to check out McDonald's. I'm going to be the greeter at Walmart. Fine, whatever. But it's not as sustainable. It's not who you are. So what we're doing is saying, you can't succeed. You're going to be here forever. So we're going to make sure that we give you the money that you deserve, and it's just all a political scheme. It's the same thing they did during the FDR election. It was two chickens in every pot and a car in every garage. That was his thing. Well, how are you going to do that? We're just going to give it away. Well, who are you going to take it from? So there's this great book called The 5,000-Year Leap, and I encourage everybody to read it. It's the 28 Principles of Freedom that our founders realized, and that's what they lived by. So principle number 7 is equal rights, not equal things. So here's the scenario.
Important.
You look across the street and you see your neighbor to the left has 2 cars, and your neighbor to the right has 1 car. And every Sunday, this family comes out. They've got 7 kids, and they come out and they're having to carry these kids 3 miles to go to church. And then this other family, they come out, 2 kids, jump in a car, go to church. The other car's just sitting there. And he's like, what a waste. How fair is that? That family doesn't have a car. They have to walk to church. They have to walk for their groceries. They don't have a car. They're lucky to have a house. So he's like, this is just not right. So he goes over to his neighbor and he says, hey, Joe, Jim doesn't have a car. They have to walk everywhere. And he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, well, you need to give him one of your cars. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And so he goes back to his house. He's all irritated. He comes back out at night, dark. Everybody's out. Takes the car and drives it over to Jim's house, Jim, and says, leaves the keys, and with a little note that says, "This is yours now." So what happens?
Jim drives it and then goes to jail.
Right. Okay. So the guy goes to jail because he stole the car. So he's like, this is just not right. So he gets out of jail, he pays his fine, whatever. He's like, this is not right. So he goes to the city council and he says, everybody should have a car. Nobody should have to walk. It's not fair that this family has to walk and this family has 2 cars. It's a waste. And so they pass a law. You're right. You're right, Harry. That's not right. So if Jim doesn't have any cars and Joe has 2 cars, that's just not right. So they pass a law. Everybody should have at least 1 car. And if you have more than 1 car, you have to give it to your neighbor. So then the magistrate, sheriff, whoever, comes over to Joe's house, takes his car, the keys, drives it over to Jim's house and says, this is yours now. What's the difference?
The government made it a law.
It's still theft.
Yeah.
The government cannot do anything that we cannot do ourselves. So we can't steal from someone else. The government can't steal from someone else. Yeah. It's the principle that you get behind. So it doesn't matter if it's the minimum wage issue or, hey, I need free health care issue or pay off my college. It's the principle behind it. You cannot steal as an individual, so you cannot steal as the government.
Wow.
What about taxes in general? Because there's already taxes. Would you consider regular taxes to be theft?
So the way that the tax system used to work It actually worked really well. And there were a lot of very wealthy people that rose up because of that tax system. And there was no such thing as an income tax. You guys probably don't know that because you're way too young. There was no income tax, and yet we all did just fine. They did it all on tariffs and all kinds of things. It was, until 1913, it was unconstitutional to directly tax Americans. They couldn't take, the federal government could take nothing out of your paycheck. What they did is, and this is why they had the
Like roads.
Every 10 years, the census. This is why they have the census for two reasons, one for representation and one for taxation. So what they would do is you paid taxes based on your populace, and so the state would take the census number and they would say, okay, based on our population, this is how many people will be representing us in the federal government, in the union, and this is how much money we will pay to the federal government for the union. Everything that the federal government, if you read the Constitution, it's very clear. The federal government is to for interstate relations and outside protection. That's it. Their whole role is to protect us from without, to have a united front from within. All these things that they're doing from the Department of Education, the Department of Agriculture, are completely unconstitutional, but they just keep growing. Homeland Security, that was the most recent one that was developed. Completely unconstitutional. You just can't. We're gonna have a new office. We're gonna have and when they do this, they create these huge bureaucracies, and they have to build these big buildings. So if we just adhere to the Constitution and we look and see what is the federal government actually allowed to do, but here's where the problem comes in. 1913. So in 1913 was a very bad year for America, and you're seeing the fruits of that year right now. So there were 5 men who got together. One of them, of course, was Rockefeller. Another one, his name was Jacob Schiff. Yes. His name is spelled exactly the same as Adam Schiff. Can I prove that they're related? No. But I know that they passed this down like a legacy of destruction. They get all the best Harvard schools, they get all the best perks, and they're passing on, this is how we're going to destroy America, and you're going to be at the top, So they're probably related. So these 5 men get together, and they're like, we're going to fix America. It was working out pretty well before then.
Yeah.
So they created the Federal Reserve, compulsory education, the 16th Amendment, where they could now direct tax individuals, where the IRS shows up, and the 17th Amendment. Now, prior to 1913, the states were protected in the Union. Every state, which is basically its own country, 50 countries united together in a union, because we all have our own executive branch, our own judicial branch, our own legislative body. So we have all these separate states that have come together in this union. We have to be represented, right? Yeah. The states have to be represented in the union. The Electoral College is the only thing we have left in representation. Prior to 1913 and the 17th Amendment, we didn't elect senators. The state legislators appointed them. And so the state was represented, and I had a much better say because, I mean, how have you ever seen your senator? Does he ever even come?
No.
Does your senator even show up in California? So it's, but if this legislature was representing them, your state representative, your Senate, your, state senator, state representative, thank you, of the House, they're right in your neighborhood. Yeah. So you can go in and you can say, hey, no, we're not for this. So if we didn't have the 17th Amendment, and when they were trying to pass something like Obamacare, instead of the states having to file lawsuits against their own senators that were supposed to represent them, which is what was happening, they'd have just made a phone call. Rein it in, dude, or you're coming home.
Oh, my goodness. So, that seems much more better.
So now we have this really big, overbloated government, and we're trying to fix it overnight, and that's not going to happen. They've been destroying it for 200 years.
Now, I am curious, back to that thing with the people who, like how it used to work before income tax, and how, I was curious, so where does that money come from? From there's the census, and then there's the money that was the taxes that would go to the federal government, right?
Yes. So what would happen is basically the state would get a bill. And they'd say, this is your portion of the bill that you're going to pay to cover the federal government. And so the state writes a check and gives it to the federal government. It's completely backwards now. So now the state is going to the federal government and saying, please, sir, can I have some more? And it's their own money. How is it their own money? You live in California, right?
Yeah.
So if you're paying taxes to California, that's your money. Yeah. But if you live in California and the federal government is taken out of your paycheck, then it's California's money. You live here. Yeah. You work here. You shop here. You vote here. That money should stay here.
Yeah.
To fix your roads, to fix your bridges, to pay for your police officers. But that's not what happens. Yeah. So the federal government is like, okay, and now they're bribing and blackmailing us with our own money. If you do this, we'll give money for your police force. If you do this, we'll give money to your school. And this is why all these schools are buying into these crazy ideologies, because they were promised money if they had open bathrooms.
So you don't think that taxing the rich, like taxing the wealthier class, is the solution?
How are those wealthy people going to hire anybody if we tax them so much that there's no... So this whole idea of taxing the rich or taxing the poor... There is one objective that's going on here when it comes to taxation, and that is make the rich people, quote, rich people, look bad. And who gets to decide who the rich people are? Right. And make the lower class people, despise the rich people for having too much money. And so they're destroying the middle class completely because they're regulating them to death. And of course, 2020, all those businesses closed down. They never were able to survive back again. That's the government getting in the way. So if you go out there, and a lot of these people who are, quote, wealthy, and again, who decides what wealthy is? When they start doing this taxation thing, they sit down around a table and they're like, oh, okay. Across the board, if you make $400,000 a year, you're going to pay 40% because you're rich. And if you make $400,000 a year, you're going to pay because you're rich. $40,000 a year, you're poor. So we're going to take some of their money and give it to you. So make sure that you're okay. So they're building up this reliant class. They're taking away from the ones who have built something. And the people in the middle who are trying to build something are constantly being... So more and more people are either relying on the government or being oppressed by the government. So the idea of, taxing the rich, they get to decide arbitrarily who the rich is. $400,000 in Tennessee isn't the same thing as $400,000 in Los Angeles. I mean, when you are buying a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot house for $1.5 million, it's like, how is $400,000 rich?
And then you're in California.
Right, you're in California. I mean, it's insanity. So they just arbitrarily sit around a table, and the whole entire point is to penalize everybody in the middle. And the people who are rich, they quote rich, then the ones that are like, multimillionaires, billionaires, they have all kinds of people to get around the taxes. Yeah. And Ed Asner, I don't know if you guys know Ed Asner, he's an actor. And years ago, he was on the Sean Hannity show, and he was talking about the taxes and how, the rich should pay more and whatever. And so Sean Hannity asked him, well, do you pay your full tax? He goes, of course not. Nobody does.
What?
Right? I mean, you can't make this stuff
So
up.
is that because he's like doing that thing where you put it in stocks or something like that? So then
there's all kinds of places where you can put it. And when you have the ability to hire accountants at that level to be able, there are all kinds of places you can hide your money.
Would a possible solution to that though to be to tax people's like estates, or their stocks? Is that So Ronald Reagan had a great quote. He said, and I'm going to botch it, but it's like, if it's moving, tax it. If it's breathing, tax it. If it's if it's just like everything is taxing it.
Yes.
So the estate tax and I think the property tax is the most immoral tax out there, and there are people who are losing their property all the time because they've had property for 200 years, 100 years, and they're in their family, and then the taxes kept rising and rising and rising, and they couldn't afford it. They lost their property. Yeah. The second one would be estate tax. So you spend your whole entire life building up a farm or building up a business, and working so hard, and then you want to give that to your family, right? So they can continue that on. You die and you lose 40-60% of all of it because it's an estate tax. That's completely immoral. What did the government do to earn any of that money? If you guys ever become a consultant, so I've worked for other people before, but I've also been a consultant.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you are a contractor, and I was a contracted consultant, so they paid me a certain amount of money, and then I had to pay my own taxes, my own Social Security, my own everything.
Yeah.
So normally, we don't even think about the money the government's taking because it's gone before we even see the check.
Yeah.
Well, when you're sitting there and you're having to pay it yourself and write the check, it's like, I must have spent 2 months sitting there trying to prove to the government how much money I didn't make so I could keep what little bit I did. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, what did you do to earn this?
Yeah.
What did you do to earn this? So I'm all about, contributing. You live in a community, then you pay taxes to the community. But I have a tax solution that nobody will ever agree with, but because the people who would make the decisions don't like the idea, and they're using money to bribe, blackmail, and oppress the people.
What is it?
It is 10% tax straight across the board. And it's paid to your local county. It's collected on the county level, and the county then pays to the state. They keep 5%. They pay 5% to the state. The state keeps 3% and gives the other 2% to the federal government.
Does any of it come back to like the poverty class?
The job of helping the poverty class is not the government. It's the churches. But the local community, the closest you are to someone in need is where they're going to get help. When the federal government or even the state, the further away you get from them, the less support they get. If you're walking down the road and you see someone who's homeless or you see someone who's hungry, then you can say, oh my gosh, can I take you into McDonald's and get you a hamburger? You see that person, you're helping that person, you know they've been fed. But when you give it to the federal government, then the federal government regulates how much they're going to get. And I will tell you that the way that this government welfare system works, I was on it. I was on the welfare system. And every time we would get close to getting ahead, we got penalized and we had to be held back. Because if you make too much money, they take away money. So it's like you're always stuck there. And you just have to take that leap and say, I'm out. I'm out.
And it's very hard for people to want to get out of that.
It is. It's become generational. And their idea of getting better is demanding more money from the government and having more babies to get more money from the government, or not getting married but having a father for your children. I mean, I've known tons of people in various different areas around the country where the father is a part of the life, and he basically is a husband and a father, but they didn't get married because if they did, they'd lose the government welfare.
Yeah.
How much of homelessness is a choice?
How much of homelessness is a choice?
Yeah, like how among all homeless people, how many, like it's a huge problem for California. We were talking about resources for them. How much of it is like a choice, like people choose, how they say people choose to be homeless?
It's a proven fact that most of the people who are homeless have a mental or drug or alcohol problem. And so we're not going to the root of the problem. We're just masking it. So we need to find out, let's work with each individual. And you're going to have a much better chance doing that on the local level. So if 5% of our taxes is going to that county, think about that. That means that county is being taken care of. The people who live in that county can be part of the solution. The churches, the different organizations, the government can all come together to be a part of that community. But when you take it out of the community, then that community is always going to the federal government saying, I need money for this. And they'll go, okay, but if we give you money for this, you got to do this. Bribery and blackmail with our own money.
Is there such thing as too rich?
Do you think there's such a thing as too much?
I don't know. Do you think there's such a thing? What happens if...
I know people who have more money than God, and God bless them. Elon Musk has has worked his butt off. He has used his ingenuity, his know-how, his intellect, and he has gone out there on a limb. He wasn't born with a silver spoon. He wasn't born a millionaire. He worked hard for that. Same thing with Steve Jobs and even Bill Gates. Sorry, I don't really like him. But they worked for what they had. And why would we penalize them for that? And think of all of the people that they have been able to hire and the companies that they have been able to create. I mean, the reason we have Pixar is because Steve Jobs had the finances to be able to look at that and say, that's kind of cool. Disney didn't want it. Okay, this is a great story about Pixar.
Okay, I'm down.
So the guy who created Pixar, the concept of that computerized generated animation, worked for Disney.
Yeah.
He took it to the president of Disney and said, he worked his way up, took it to President of Disney and said, I have this great idea. And he looked at it and he goes, oh, that's cool. And he goes, so you don't have to do animation, you don't have to do the drawing? No, you still have to do the drawing. You just do this after. He goes, yeah, it's too much trouble.
Oh, man.
So he left Disney. And then Steve Jobs found out about this, and he's like, well, I want to be a part of that. So you see these great things that are happening. So Pixar becomes this, great company and building these incredible things. And then Disney ends up coming and buying Pixar like 20 years later for a ridiculous amount of money for something they could have had free.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he developed it while he was working there, but he took it with him because they didn't want it.
Yeah, they didn't want it. Well, just in that thing about people who are super wealthy, like Elon Musk or something, they got it because they're such hardworking people. Well, I mean, like, my brother he's one of the hardest working people I know and I've ever seen, but he's not a successful musician. So, like, what about all the people who work so hard and never make it in life,
Okay. So this is where we put our big girl and big boy pants on. Get a different job. Maybe music is a hobby that he loves and continues to do. Maybe it's not going to put food on the table. And we have to make those decisions. I mean, everything in life is a decision. Are we going to go to college or not? Are we going to? And I would say you don't need to most of the time. But what am I going to do? When I graduate from high school, what am I going to do? If my passion is music, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to give up? Is he willing to live on ramen and hot dogs the rest of his life because that's what he wants to do? Then great. Then he's successful.
Yeah.
How do you measure success? Money isn't how you measure success.
Yeah.
How you measure success is how you feel about yourself and how you give to your community.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of great, talented people out there who never, quote, made it. But that doesn't mean that they're not successful. Yeah. It just means that they're living their passion. They're putting food on the table. They're taking care of their family. What difference does it make if they're making $100,000 or $10,000? My son and his wife are living right now on his military pension because he and my other son have started a business together. And they're both living in my house. And they have their own separate areas in the house. But, my one son has a wife and 2 kids. 2 girls. My other son has a wife and a boy and a girl. 2 families living in our home. My son with the boy and the girl, they have a house in our town that he owns. He moved out of that house and he rented it to come and live with us, so he didn't have to have a house payment. Yeah. Or the house payment was being covered with the rent, so that he could put all of his money and resources into that business. The guy who started Vivint Security, he told his fiance, before they got married, he warned her, he said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something big. But to get there, we are going to have to live on as little as possible for as long as possible so we can get there. The problem is not money. The problem is not success. The problem is we want everything right now. We're looking at all these people who have worked so hard for all these things and saying, well, I should have that. Why am I not successful? Why am I not making all this money? Well, because you didn't work your butt off to get it. What are you willing to give up for your dream?
That's big. Now we do have, I believe it's like 12 minutes left. So I kind of want to circle back to Moms for America and just ask you, because there's been a lot of different changes in the country. I mean, maybe not so much huge, but there's been a lot of different like war fronts you've had to fight. What are a few of those?
Wow, there's so many.
Yeah.
Well,
some of the big ones that come to mind.
So the Kavanaugh confirmation. That was a really big one. We showed up in Washington, D.C. just because I felt called to do that. And when we got there, I started meeting with all the various different members of the Senate and the committees, and getting information of how's this working, and just kind of trying to get a read on everything. And then I did a live stream every day, sometimes a couple of times a day, letting all the moms know this is what's happening. Well, when I met with the chief of staff for Senator Grassley's office and his judicial office, she said, that we don't have the votes. This isn't going to happen. We don't even have close anywhere the number of votes. Not going to happen. And I was like, you know what? I'm so tired of hearing that. Instead of telling me it's not going to happen, how about you telling me what we need to get it done? She said, well, we need more of you. More moms out here who are standing up and being the counter voice to the crazy. And so we did. And we knocked on every member's door. We spent a lot of time in Senator Manchin and Senator Collins' offices because we thought that was the best opportunity. And every day I got up and I said, why am I here? Why am I not home with my family? I'd much rather be home with my family. But every day God just said, get up and go. And because we were there, we were able to be that counter voice and give those men the backbone they needed to stand up and do what was right. I mean, what man wants to stand up against, don't you believe me?
Yeah.
But the women, I'm very disappointed in the women because the women should have been standing up and going, oh, no, we're not going there. Women are destroying this country. Women can save this country.
Whoa, wait, why are women destroying this country?
That radical feminist women are destroying this country. It was radical feminist women who tried to stop him from being appointed. It was radical feminist women that stood out outside his door and threatened his family. It was radical feminist women that scratched on the Supreme Court office door and took over the Hart Senate office building. They behaved unladylike. They didn't behave like humans, but everybody's like, well, they're women, so we just have to. No, we don't have to accept that. We do not have to accept that. And so because we were there and because of one word, I went on Martha McCullum Wednesday night before they had the vote, and we had a statement that we'd been passing around to everyone, the senators, the media. The media was throwing it away in the trash before I even finished turning around. And I thought, nobody's paying attention. We're not winning. We're not getting anywhere. Well, that night I'm on Martha McCullum, and she asked me the same question everybody else had been asking. Do you think Christine Blasey Ford was credible? And I said, well, I think she was compelling, but without corroboration and substantiation, it's just a compelling story. A couple hours later, I got a call from a friend at Fox, and she's like, Kimberly, no one's using the word credible anymore at Fox. They're all using the word compelling. The next day, every single Republican senator was using the word compelling. And Susan Collins, before she got up to make her vote, used the word compelling and pulled excerpts right out of our statement we thought everybody was ignoring.
Wait, what's the difference? Is it just like you change the word and then the legal meaning? Like what exactly?
Because everybody kept, when you say credible, it's like, well, then it's, if you're credible, it must be true. I mean, she's credible. She listened to the story. And I'm like, well, compelling is, it was a very compelling story. It caused us to all go, oh my gosh. I mean, I did. I was like, oh, she's good.
You were emotionally moved, and
yes,
then therefore
you were
it was
emotionally
valid.
moved with compelling, but credible is there's substantiation behind it.
Facts.
There's facts.
Yeah. Feelings versus facts.
There you go. Crazy feelings. But we won, and so that was a really big challenge. And they said several of the senators, and even Orrin Hatch, who was in the Senate at the time, wrote us a letter and thanked us for being there and the way that we presented ourselves. And so I just think showing up and being there at these different points in time in history, but so I could go through several of those kinds of things, but really what we do that has the greatest movement in our country and it's making the greatest difference is in our own homes. And we first and foremost validate moms when in their hearts what they already feel to be true, that the most important thing that you will ever do and the greatest act of patriotism you will ever perform is in the walls of your own home. As you're raising the future generations. And what do you want America to look like in 10, 20, 30 years? Because you're raising it right now. You're determining it in your home right now. You ladies, you're going to be determining that. You're determining that right now. And women are the keepers of the culture. If you walk into an office building and you walk in dressed like a streetwalker, and you're cussing up a storm, then all the guys, that's the standard that's been set. And they're going to cuss around you, and they're going to slap your butt, and they're just going to think it's all fun. But if you walk in dressed respectfully, carrying your head high,
Yeah.
and demanding that they come to your level, they will. Now, they may cuss, but they'll apologize immediately. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Even if they throw the F-bomb out like 27 times, every time they're going to go, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Because you have set the standard. And we have to raise the standard because the radical feminists have lowered it. And now it's actually these feminists, the radical feminists who are leading everybody. Most of them are just deceived, but the ones who are leading the charge are now saying there's no such thing as a woman. Do they not realize they're erasing themselves? So everything that we accomplished with Title IX, with the women's movement, all of that is just now out the window, and we don't exist.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
women are destroying America. Women can save it.
Yes. Oh, wow. What a
amazing.
powerful statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really.
Now, I did find a quote on, I believe it's Moms for America Action. I think that was where it was found. But it says, a little matter will move a party, but it must be something great that moves a nation. And that's by Thomas Paine. Explain that.
So there are a lot of, when you see like big parties, okay, big organizations holding these big parties, shooting T-shirts out of the cannons, whatever. I know, oh, that's cool, great. You have these big elections and these big conventions, and it's all that big fanfare. But it's the those little small and simple things are the things that have these great things will come to pass. So if you just are focused on the here and now, a little matter will move a party, a policy here, something over there, the fanfare, everything else. But if you want a movement, if you want to move a nation, you go to the culture. And one of the reasons why we have been losing is because we have been fighting principle with policy. And if we need to start fighting principle with principle, because when we do, freedom wins. Socialism won't win. Marxism won't win. Communism will not win. Because when they understand what that really means, and hopefully they'll figure it out before they're living in it, when they understand what that really means, they don't want it. So freedom wins. It courses through our veins, and we've had freedom way too long to give it up. So when you show them 2020, that's why so many people are scratching their heads going, I mean, when we went through Red Balloon, which is a great company, a hiring company, and it's a company that was started in a basement as a joke and ended up becoming a real company, connecting people who wanted freedom with organizations that had freedom. Yeah. So if you weren't forced to put a needle in your arm, you weren't forced to do a mask, those were connecting those people. And so everybody that we interviewed who came through Red Balloon had the most incredible stories. There was this one woman, 25, 26-year-old from San Francisco, and she was working from home. And she was told that she had to take the shot. But she never went into the office. And she's like, why do I have to do this? So she said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she couldn't believe that somebody would force her to do that. So she ended up losing her job. So she was looking for a new job. She was willing to take a $5,000 pay cut to come and work for us. Stay in San Francisco because her mother refused to move and she was taking care of her mom. But what she said, I will never forget this. It's etched in my mind and heart. I thought I was liberal. I thought that I was the one that was sensitive and compassionate and believed in freedom. But this makes no sense. How can what they're doing be freedom? And she completely changed her whole entire outlook. And I mean, I'm not about political parties. I am a registered Republican, but that's because it's the best avenue to work through, and I want to vote in the primaries, but I'm disgusted with both of them. And George Washington said that political parties will be the downfall of our country. He said that in his farewell address. Beware of political factions. We as a people should be the political faction. All of us united together. And I mean...
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like the country is having a divorce, and I'm like the kid in the courtroom who's like having to choose between mom and dad.
Right. It's awful. But most of the people in this country, the majority of the people in this country are neither a political party.
Yeah.
And they're fed up with both of them.
Yep.
And they should be, because it just looks like two kids in a sandbox fighting, two kids in a court, and you're trying to figure out which parent do I choose. That's it.
I think that's why so many young people just get so tuned out from the conversation, because it's just like, I don't have time for that. It's too stressful, you know?
Right.
Check out, because politics, that's what politics has become is not what politics should be. So, and it's one of the things that we teach in our cottage meetings and in our group meetings. The difference between civic responsibility and politics, and a politician and a statesman. And when you understand that difference, then you're like, oh, well, I want to be a statesman. I want to raise statesmen. And I don't want to do politics. I want to do civic responsibility. Well, that's voting. And maybe that means that you have to join a party so you have a greater voice in a primary. But it's not about the party. Right. It's about the person, the people that are running. Look at the people that are running. And if we do that, then we're going to elect really good, solid people across the board more often.
Yeah. Now, we are going to be closing up pretty soon, in just a couple minutes, but how can people, because this is for Moms for America, and you said, I believe on the website it says grandmothers, mothers.
Right. We have Grammy Grizzlies, mothers, future Moms for America.
Right. Now people who don't fit in that category, guys, how can they, or just, just young girls, how can they support this and be involved?
So my daughter has a show called Millennial Rant, and it's a podcast, and she started Future Moms for America because she said, we're all, at some point in time, we're going to be mothers. We had a mother, but here's the thing. Motherhood is divine nature. It's our divine nature. Whether or not we have children, childbirth is just a part of the equation. We are the nurturers. We are the ones who are the caregivers. That's why we're bleeding hearts and buy into all this emotional stuff all the time. But we don't want anybody to go hungry. We don't want anybody to suffer. That's who we are.
Yeah.
But if we understand the principles and then we use that nurturing heart, then we will lift the culture. And so right now, our country is out of control, and she needs to be put back in shape, and she's going to need every mother and mother heart lining up to do it, and that's going to be all of us. So we have coming up, this year's our 20th anniversary, and we have a big event we're doing in Dallas, Texas, February 29th to March 2nd. Our 20th anniversary celebration summit and gala, and we are going to have a breakout a social time for Future Moms for America, and 12 and up are invited to go.
Wonderful.
So moms can bring their daughters, and
that's fun.
So there's a lot of cool things that we do, and that you can be a part of turning this around right in your own sphere of influence, whether you have children or not.
That's good.
That's amazing.
That sounds wonderful. Now, lastly, I just want to ask for a message for Gen Z, maybe some couple words of wisdom and something you'd like to share for us.
Wow, Gen Z, I love you. I just want you to know that you are the ones who are waking up and looking at Gen Y and going, why? So Gen Z is starting to see something is not working, and there's like weird stuff going on, and you're trying to figure out why is it all weird, and putting a name to it or identifying why is it this way. Why can't it just why can't everybody just get along, right?
Yeah.
That's the big thing with Gen Z. Why can't everybody just get along?
Yeah.
You guys have the ability to make that happen. I have a lot of hope and confidence in Gen Z. You guys are the ones who are starting to look out and go, are we the only ones that know the emperor's naked and something's not right? And so start calling it out, standing up and speaking, being that ambassador of truth where you are, because other people are feeling the same way.
Absolutely,
but nobody's standing up and turning the light switch on and saying, here's the light, here's the truth. Be that person, and I guarantee you other people will flock to you because they're hungry for those leaders who will stand up for truth and common sense.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
great.
Yes.
Yeah, and where can people find you in Moms of America?
Momsforamerica.us online or on all the social media channels, platforms, momsforamerica.us. Check us out.
That's wonderful. Well,
amazing.
thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. It's been really cool.
You guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
I love this. Keep doing this.
Yeah.
This is the way you can change the world. Right here, right here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yes, and well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us. And remember to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or X, and Twitter at 180shift, and visit our website 180shift.org and check us out there. We'd love to have you back for next